It was a Tuesday morning in July, the kind of morning that makes you believe the world is good. Sun breaking through the trees, a light breeze, the smell of cut grass, and a young mother walking her dog with her 2-year-old son at her side. By 10:30 a.m., she was dead. Her little boy, not yet old enough to understand what death meant, knelt over her bloodied body in the middle of a public park in London, pressed his small hands to her cheeks, and said the words that would haunt an entire nation for the next 34 years. "Wake up, Mummy, wake up." This is the story of Rachel Nickell, a beautiful, vibrant 23-year-old who was murdered in broad daylight in front of her child on one of London's most popular parks. It is a story about a country's grief, a police force's obsession, and the catastrophic decision to destroy an innocent man rather than admit they had no idea who the real killer was. And by the end of this video, I promise you, the truth is more disturbing than the crime itself. Rachel Jane Nickell was, by every account, the kind of person who made a room brighter just by walking into it. Born in 1968, she had grown up to become a model, not in the cold, distant sense of the word, but warm, approachable, laughing in photographs. By her early 20s, she was living with her partner Andre Hanscom and their son Alexander Alex in Balham, South London. On the morning of July 15th, 1992, she did what she did almost every morning. She took Alex and the family dog, Molly, to Wimbledon Common, 1,100 acres of ancient woodland just minutes from their home. A place of joggers and dog walkers, a place of ordinary life. At approximately 10:20 a.m., Rachel and Alex entered a secluded wooded path. No one else was nearby. And then a man emerged. In less than 3 minutes, Rachel Nickell was stabbed 49 times. She was sexually assaulted, and she was left to bleed to death in the dirt while her son, barely 2 years old, stood beside her, untouched, unharmed, and utterly alone. A passing jogger found him minutes later, clinging to his mother, calling her name, with a piece of paper stuck to her forehead, placed there by the tiny boy who wanted desperately to make her better. The murder sent shockwaves through Britain. The Metropolitan Police Scotland Yard faced enormous public pressure. The tabloids went into a frenzy. A beautiful young mother killed in a park, in daylight, in front of her baby. The country demanded answers. Police released a photo fit of a suspect based on witness descriptions. And that's when the name Colin Stagg entered the story. Colin Stagg was a 28-year-old unemployed man who lived nearby and who, like dozens of others, regularly walked his dog on Wimbledon Common. A loner, awkward. He had written some unusual letters. Some of the public thought he looked like the photo fit. That was essentially the entirety of the evidence against him. There was no DNA, no witnesses, no weapon, nothing placing him at the scene. But the police were convinced. And when the evidence won't cooperate, some investigators decide to manufacture it instead. What Scotland Yard did next would be described by a senior judge as deceptive conduct of the grossest kind. They recruited an undercover female police officer, given the alias Lizzie James, and sent her to befriend Colin Stagg, to seduce him, to gain his trust over months of phone calls and letters. And then, posing as a woman who was sexually attracted to violence, to try to get him to confess. The operation lasted over a year. Lizzie told Stagg she was drawn to dark fantasies. She hinted she had been involved in occult rituals. She tried, in dozens of different ways, to get Colin Stagg to say he had killed Rachel Nickell. He never did. On tape, clearly, repeatedly, he told her, "I'm terribly sorry, but I haven't done anything like that." The police arrested him anyway. August 17th, 1993. Charged with murder. Colin Stagg spent 13 months in custody. 13 months in a prison cell for a crime he did not commit, while the real killer walked free. On September 14th, 1994, the trial collapsed before it ever truly began. The judge threw out the entire case and condemned the police operation in open court. Colin Stagg walked out a free man, technically exonerated, legally innocent, but the tabloids had spent over a year painting him as a monster. He was hounded in the streets, spat at, threatened. He became one of the most reviled figures in Britain for something he did not do. And through all of this, Rachel's real killer was still out there. Andre Hanscom, fearing for his son's safety with a murderer still unidentified, made the devastating decision to pack up his life and flee to rural France. Rachel's son grew up in exile, far from the country where his mother was buried, trying to outrun a memory that would never leave him. Now, here is where the story stops being a tragedy and becomes something far darker. In 1989, 3 years before Rachel Nickell was murdered, a woman went to the police and reported something alarming. Her son, a deeply disturbed young man named Robert Napper, had confessed to her that he had raped a woman on Wimbledon Common. The police did nothing. In the years that followed, Napper committed a string of horrifying attacks across southeast London. Assaults, rapes, a catalogue of violence that investigators would later link to over 100 sex crimes. He was on police radar. His name appeared in their files. He even appeared briefly as a suspect in Rachel Nickell's own murder in 1995, and was somehow eliminated. In November 1993, just months after Colin Stagg was charged for Rachel's murder, Robert Napper broke into the flat of 27-year-old Samantha Bissett. He murdered her. And he murdered her 4-year-old daughter, Jasmine. The signature of that crime was almost identical to Rachel Nickell's killing. The police had been hunting the wrong man all along, and an innocent woman and her child paid the price for it. It took until 2004 for science to do what the police could not. Advances in DNA technology allowed forensic teams to re-examine a tiny sample taken from Rachel's body at the original crime scene, a sample so small it had been unanalyzable for over a decade. It matched Robert Napper. By this point, Napper was already confined to Broadmoor, Britain's most secure psychiatric hospital, for the murders of Samantha and Jasmine Bissett. On December 18, 2008, 16 years after Rachel Nickell drew her last breath on Wimbledon Common, Robert Napper stood in the Old Bailey and pleaded guilty to her manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. He received an indefinite hospital order. He will likely never be released. That same month, Colin Stagg finally received his apology from the Metropolitan Police. It was, he said, a long time coming. He was later awarded £706,000 in compensation. No amount could give him back the decades stolen from him. Rachel's son Alex, the little boy who tried to wake his mother in the dirt of Wimbledon Common, grew up. He has spoken publicly about that morning only a handful of times. He once said, "The moment he watched his mother's soul leave her body is one he will never forget, that it remained engraved in his mind, that even decades later, he could still see the film running inside his mind." Today, as we mark 34 years since that summer morning, Rachel Nickell has not been forgotten. Her story of a system that failed her, hunted the wrong man, and let a killer walk free for 16 years is a monument to what happens when justice becomes performance. Rachel was 23 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She deserved better from the people sworn to find her killer. They just wanted someone, anyone, and an innocent man nearly paid with his life. If this story moved you, share it. Rachel's name deserves to be said, not just as a case number, as a person. I'll see you in the next one.